this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
We've all tumbled down an internet rabbit hole trying to self-diagnose, and it leaves us more anxious than informed. Our feeds are full of wellness trends, but how do we know what's real, what's exaggerated, and what's just wrong? Health versus Hype from the American Medical Association breaks it all down. Emmy-nominated science communicator Trace Dominguez talks to doctors, influencers, and real people trying these trends, not to cancel them, but to understand them. Because when it comes to your health, who you listen to matters. So listen to Health versus Hype wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, and welcome to the Short Stuff. Josh here, Chuck here. Let's get going with Short Stuff because I love this one.
That's right. Yet another maritime disaster, our most popular subfield, it seems like.
Yeah, I want to give a huge shout out to Strange Company, a great website. They have a Friday link dump every week. It's really great. But they also just write on strange mysteries and weird stuff. And that's where I first heard of this, but also hat tip to the Maui Times and the LA Times for some help with getting our facts straight on this.
Yeah, I think we could maybe even do Maritime Disasters You Should Know as its own separate little short podcast.
Yeah, people love maritime disasters. Can't get enough of it. They're all sickos.
All right, so this is the story of the Sarah Joe. It takes place in 1979. When a guy from California, a 27-year-old named Scott Mormon, who was living in Hawaii, went with 4 construction worker buddies, went to them and said, "Hey guys, let's not do our work today. Let's go fishing. It's a great day. Let's do it." One of the guys, Ralph Malaiakini, he had access to a boat from his brother Robert, who did not go on this trip, but a 17-foot Boston whaler. Named the Sarah Joe, and the 5 of these guys who were, they weren't super experienced fishermen, but they knew their way around a boat and an ocean, set out for, probably not a 3-hour tour, but maybe a 6-hour tour.
Yeah, from Hana, Hawaii, I believe on the island of Maui. And because this was not supposed to be more than a few-hour tour, they didn't pack a ton of supplies. They were just going fishing. It was a beautiful day, and like you said, they skipped work to take advantage of it. Robert, Ralph Malaiakini's brother, later said that the sea looked like a lake that day. But within 2 hours of them setting out on the Sarah Joe, it just completely turned. And within a couple hours of that, there was a gale that had whipped up. And it was just not a good scene for somebody to be out in an open boat on. No,
and it disappeared. That boat was gone. The Coast Guard went looking, obviously. They spent about a week searching. They eventually called off their search, and then friends and family kept looking for about another month and never found anything at all. No trace anywhere of any of these guys, anything on that boat, any part of that boat. And I guess it seemed like that was probably the end of the story at the time until a decade later in September 88, when a marine biologist named John Naughton was doing some research on an uninhabited island, or actually a string of islands, the Taongi Atoll, near the Marshall Islands, and he saw a boat. And he was like, wait a minute, it's got a Hawaiian registry. I think that's the Sarah Joe. And the reason I know that is because I was one of the guys 10 years earlier that was looking for it.
Yeah, isn't that nuts?
It's amazing.
I mean, what just a crazy twist of fate, because if he hadn't have been in the search, he said he immediately thought of the Sarah Joe. If he hadn't have been, primed already 10 years before to be thinking about that boat, who knows if anybody would have ever done anything about it. But John Naughton, he started looking around and found near the boat there was a pile of rocks, and it turned out to be a burial mound. On top of it, kind of a dead giveaway, was a driftwood cross and part of a jawbone. And when the rocks were removed, he found more parts of a skeleton. And then there was one other thing, a little pad or a little stack of paper that had been partially burned. And that was it. John Naughton looked around the rest of the beach. He didn't find anything else. He didn't find any other remains. He didn't find anything but this weird assemblage of clues and human remains.
That's right, which raises some very big questions, which we'll answer after the break. Namely, how did this boat get 2,300 miles away? how did this guy die? When did he die? Who buried this guy? And where are the other 4 guys?
It's a lot of questions.
We'll be right back. Hey, everybody. When you're at work, you never know when you're going to get interrupted, like when an office fire drill happens right in the middle of your presentation, or maybe construction is going on just outside your window. But with the Dell Pro laptop powered by Intel Core Ultra with vPro, no matter how many interruptions you have, your laptop won't be one of them.
Yeah, with a battery that's optimized for the way you work and built-in intelligence that quiets distractions the moment you're trying to focus, your tech won't slow you down, even when you're getting bounced from an office you forgot to reserve. The Dell Pro, built for those who stay in the flow. Find technology built the way you work at Dell.com/Dell-Pro. Built for you.
Our listeners love puzzles, paradoxes, and hidden patterns almost as much as we do. On TikTok, those fascinations come to life. People are breaking down physics, exploring geology, and explaining why the world works the way it does. You'll see impressive experiments, explanations that finally make sense, and connections you didn't expect. It's like having a lab, a lecture hall, and science museum in your pocket. TikTok is where wonder is shared, where curiosity turns into discovery, and where millions learn something new every day.
So, Chuck, you just rattled off a lot of questions. And first thing we should say is that after Naughton got the remains back into the hands of the U.S. Army Central Identification Lab in Hawaii, they couldn't determine how this person died or when they died, but they did determine that it was Scott Moorman, the native Californian who was one of the guys who shipped out on that boat with the other 4 dudes. It definitely was somebody from that Sarah Joe expedition fishing trip. And it definitely was the Sarah Joe boat. But that was about all of the questions that you just said that they could answer.
Yeah, they, of course, his family was like coming up with ideas how he could have made it that far, whether or not he was alive when he got there. His family thinks that he may have gotten there alive, but then, died from the elements and not having water. Other people say, well, maybe he strapped himself to the boat and actually died out there, but that's how he finally reached land because he was strapped to that boat.
Right.
And we just don't know. And we also don't know who would have buried him, but that stack of papers is a pretty good clue, I think.
Yeah, there's a theory that he was buried by Chinese fishermen. And the reason why is because of that stack of papers. They were like little 3x3 sheets of paper. Altogether, the stack was less than an inch thick. But one of the major characteristics of the stack of paper was that there was a sheet of foil in between each sheet of paper. And the reason that some people think that this is a Chinese fishing expedition that found and buried him is because there's, in Chinese funeral customs, something called joss paper, which is burned, and it's considered spirit money. So it's a gift to the deceased to use in the afterlife. And the defining characteristic of joss paper is that it has a foil lining on at least one side. The big suggestion for why they would have put a cross is that they may have recognized this guy as Caucasian, which would suggest that they found him while he was still relatively intact. But that also still leaves the question, Chuck, of when this burial took place. And they think they got it within like a 6-year window of when he would have washed up onto the shore.
Yeah, they found out that there was a survey of that atoll conducted in 1982. The incident took place in 1979. The report didn't say anything about a boat. You would think it would be included. I also saw that it's possible, when you're at these, tiny remote islands, that they could have missed something like that, those surveys aren't the most like detailed surveys. But if they didn't miss it, then that would mean that something happened over the course of 3 years.
Yeah. Isn't that eerie? So imagine that if he had strapped himself to the boat and died in the storm or shortly after, that would suggest that he was adrift in the Pacific for 3 years, dead and strapped to the Sarah Joe. Isn't that freaky?
Yeah, I don't know enough about how big the ocean is to know if 3 years if you could drift around for 3 years without anybody seeing you ever. That seems unlikely to me in the 80s.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't know, man. This is a pretty remote part of the world. I think this is where that Point Nemo area is. The most remote part of the world that's furthest away from any landmass. I'm pretty sure it's in that area, that region.
I guess it's possible, but it also had to get from Hawaii to there over 3 years.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm
just speculating.
I don't know. And if it wasn't just adrift for 3 years, who knows what happened then? Like, I have no clue, and it will probably never be answered. But the reason that they think the Chinese fishing expedition didn't tell anybody is because it was probably an illegal fishing expedition, which is, they didn't tell anybody that they found these remains, but at least they took the time to bury them and give them like some sort of funeral service, which is pretty top notch for illegal fishermen if you think about it.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of coolest part of the story is that they had enough respect for this human that they didn't even know to take care of it in that way.
For sure. I think that's it for short stuff, right?
I got nothing else.
Short stuff is out.
Stuff You Should Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.